Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about standard shapes only. So again, we're going to be talking about the progression 1465, primarily working from page 29 of volume 1. So if you have it in front of you, flip to that opening in the book and let's go ahead and get started. Now in the last video, I talked about how I barely ever use standard shapes. And I said most popular guitarists, most modern guitarists don't use a whole lot of standard shapes. And while that's true, I really do think it's important to have mastered them before you start using other shapes or building from those shapes, because there will come a time where you do need to know the standard shapes. Of course, you probably already know them, a lot of them, or they're familiar to you, but looking at them on this page, you'll see that, oh, there's 5 different ways to play standard shapes all the way up the neck. And once you know the progressions backwards and forwards using standard shapes, making those alternate improvements on these progressions is going to become second nature to you. So right now I want to talk through the standard shapes, how to play them, how I would play them, and then of course how to use a capo to make them even easier and more familiar to you. So let's first start with taking the capo off, and we're going to go to position 1, top left of page 29, where we're going to play an A major chord in a position 1. Remember, position 1 in this book doesn't mean a position on the neck. It refers to the form of the chord that we're playing, the caged form of the chord that we're playing. So position 1, or the also known as the E shape. Position 1 shape. If I were to play it down here, it looks like an E chord, but if I slide it up and put a bar down, it looks like an E shape, but sounds like an A. Now position, the next chord is on the page, moving from left to right. At the top row, we have our D major chord. So first chord, second chord, or four major chord. Then we have our 6 minor chord. And then we have our final 5 chord, which is going to be almost like a C shape, right? If I were to slide that down and put a bar down, we get an C shape looking chord, but sounding out the E major chord. In this case, we're just playing just like that. Now, those chords, if I really had to play standard shapes, I would probably use a capo. I probably wouldn't play those chords just like I barred them just now, just because it's, for one, it's difficult, and for two, it just doesn't sound quite as nice as if you played a capo. So the way to attach a capo to these standard positions and make it really easy on you is to take your first chord, in this case that A major chord, and put a capo down on where it says to bar the chord. So in this case it would be the 5th fret. Those 3 notes that are barred on the 5th fret, we're going to replace those notes with a capo, and now we're going to be able to play the first 2 chords of this progression super easily without moving the capo and without barring, by just filling out the chord with the rest of the notes that are on the diagram that aren't being played by the capo. So we have our A chord in an E shape, and then we have our D chord in a shape, right? This becomes problematic when we get to our F sharp minor chord. Now we're the 3rd chord from the left, top row of page 29. Because we can't play this F sharp minor chord without moving our capo. So what do? Now we're going to have to look down the page and get creative and find a F sharp minor chord that we can play without moving our capo. So in this case, the next closest one that's going to be the easiest to play is going to be the 9th fret F sharp minor chord, which is in the 3rd row down on page 29. That F sharp minor chord is going to be on the 9th fret, so it's going to be right here. So our first chord, 1, 2, 3, or 6 minor chord, and then our final chord, we're also going to have to find a new position. We can't play the 4th chord from the left on the top row because that also uses a note that's below our capo line. So we're going to have to go and find a new one. So looking down the page at all my E chord options or E major chord options, the one that works the best with this capo position is going to be my 7th and 9th fret A looking chord. So right there. So 1, 4, 6, 5. Much easier to play than this, in my opinion, and much nicer, because from there, if you think in your mind, oh, I'm just in the key of E major, then my minor chord I can play with open strings right there, like I would play if I was in E major, and then I could play like a sus5 sus add 4 right there. I might leave the E open. 1, 4, 6, 5. It's like an E, sorry, like an E add 4. So we take our major standard shapes and we find ways to alternate them to make them sound good. You don't necessarily need to know the theory behind how to do it right now. You can just play that standard shape and be like, oh, what does it sound like if I leave the E open, the E string open? What does it sound like here if I leave the E string open? Oh, it sounds beautiful. No idea what chord that is, but it sounds cool. And so we took our standard shape and we made it prettier by doing that. And if you want to find out what notes make up that chord, again, you can dive into music theory by learning the natural number system and music theory for the modern industry, which is one of the books that we sell at theguitarinstitute.co. Moving down the page, let's just do this 1 or 2 more times. Let's go to position 2 now. So we're going to play what looks to be like a D shape position of the A major chord. So it's going to be on the 7th and 9th fret. Right there. And then we have our 4 chord, which is a barred 7th fret, and then a final note up here, up on the 10th fret. And then we have a minor 6th chord, which is going to be the 7th and 9th fret. And then we have our final 5 chord. Now, how do we make those easier to play and less standard? We're going to take our capo out and we're going to play this D chord as if we were down here, right? So we're going to look at where the nut is in relation to this chord, this D-shaped chord, and we're going to say, oh, that's just 2 frets below this, these dots, right? Or this chord that I'm fretting right here. So if I bring that chord up here and I see, oh, my A note is just the same as my open D in this chord, and that's basically a capo. So I can put my capo right here, and I have an easier way to play position 2 of the A major progression that we're working on right now. So 1, and then we have, which is basically a G major chord. So 1, 4, a full G major chord, or sorry, a D major chord in a G position. And then we have our minor chord, which doesn't work in this case because we have a capo blocking the position that it's telling us to play on line 2, position 2. So we're going to have to find a new one for that. So where's a F sharp minor chord that can work with this capo position? Was just a line down, that F sharp. So that's our 6th chord, and then our final chord, our 5 chord, we can just play in that same line. So position 2 line, second row down on page 29, we can play that same A-shaped looking chord as our final E chord. So that's how you use a capo with these standard shapes. Basically, you're going to find the shape that it looks like, it resembles. So in this case, it was the D chord, and then find out in relation to a normal D chord, where is the nut, and then place your capo in accordance to that. So in that case, it was 2 frets behind, right, my standard D shape. And so up here, it's going to be 2 frets behind where I'm going to push my capo. And that's going to allow me to play 2, if not 3 of the chords in this progression with a capo and open strings. And then if there's any chords inside that capo new position that don't fit, then you find an alternate one looking down or up the page and grabbing it and stealing it from another one of these rows, basically, or rows of progressions. From there, you can start to add or take away notes. You can experiment with new open strings and create your own alternate versions of these standard shapes by just doing exactly what I said. You don't even really necessarily need to know the theory behind the chords that you're inventing. In fact, for the first 4 or 5 years of my guitar playing life, I would invent chords all the time by doing just this, by playing standard shapes, picking up a finger, seeing what it sounds like. If it sounds terrible, don't use it. If it sounds great, use it. And then eventually it'll be important to know the theory behind it again, and that we made that easy for you within music theory for the music industry. So that's it for this video. Enjoy and have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.